Okay, bit of a rough and ready episode today because basically I got wind of something and I've been doing a little bit of testing, hence the reason why my bikes are kind of in pieces. So while I was at Eurobike covering the show a few months back, I met a guy called Petr, really lovely guy. He runs Cyclists Hub, which is a website and a YouTube channel covering quite similar stuff to me really, so more of the affordable cycling gear coming out of China. Now he released a video the other day regarding the Magene QED Groupset, which if you watch my stuff, you might be familiar. I covered it in the Shanghai bike show stuff I did, and also Eurobike as well, because yeah, the Groupset just looks really nice. Everything seems really nicely polished. It's only available in China at the minute, actually. They haven't made it available worldwide. But Petr, via the guy he kind of interviewed on his video, they discussed what could be quite a problematic issue. Now, I'm not going to go into masses of detail around the whole kind of backstory of this issue, so I really encourage you to go and watch Petr's coverage because he shows kind of how it developed across Chinese social media over the last few days. But according to that report, one guy using the Magene QED Groupset was quite badly hurt. All right, just to jump in very quickly here, after this was all sort of filmed and squared away, I got in touch with someone at Magene. They're confident it's not an issue with the product after their own investigation. So stick around for the bonus clip at the end for a bit more info. So essentially, a guy in China fitted the QED Groupset to one of his bikes. Now, I don't have the Magene QED Groupset on me because, as mentioned, it's only really available at the moment on the Chinese domestic market. But yeah, according to the reporting from Petr and the guy he had on, he faced a pretty dramatic issue with the actual braking system of that Groupset. The brakes failed, he crashed, and then he broke his leg. But the supposed reason for the failure that they kind of discussed was pretty interesting. On a hydraulic braking setup like this, as the pad material on the brake pads within the caliper here wears away, they become thinner, but the whole system is self-regulating in that regard. So what should happen is as they become thinner, the actual pistons inside the caliper here should protrude out further to ensure that even once material wears away, it still contacts the disc rotor as it's spinning around and you're still able to brake. This should happen all the way down to the kind of bare metal on the backing plate here. So on these brake pads, I've knocked the pad material off. So I took a kind of hammer and chisel and knocked them off. But even when your pads look like this, where there's no pad material left, the pistons inside the caliper should still extend out far enough that even the metal backing plate will contact the disc rotor. It'll be really noisy because you'll have metal on metal, but you should still be able to brake, no problem. However, this allegedly did not happen with the Magene Groupset. Again, I don't have one here to test, unfortunately, so I am going off the word of Petr and the guy he was interviewing. I've got no reason not to trust them, but yeah, I would love to test it, but I don't have it, unfortunately. But apparently, the guy that faced the issue and had the crash, there was about a third of the material left on either of the brake pads, so plenty of pad material left, but even so, the pistons didn't extend out far enough to actually allow those pads to compress onto the disc. Hence the reason he crashed and broke his leg. Now, from my understanding, the way it actually works in practice is that inside the shifter body, there's a small reservoir of mineral oil, right? And that's there. So as the kind of pad material wears away and these pistons are protruding further, you require a greater volume of mineral oil inside the caliper, right? And that mineral oil comes from within the reservoir. So if, for example, the reservoir inside the shifter wasn't big enough, then yeah, these pistons couldn't protrude out far enough. So that may have been a culprit for the Magene issue, causing kind of loss of braking. Now, this is a failure mode I haven't even considered on any of the group sets that I've had kind of through my garage. So based on that report, I wanted to take this as an opportunity to test some of the other kind of Chinese hydraulic group sets that I've got in this garage from Sensah and L-TWOO specifically. But let's start with a Shimano group set here. So yeah, I've kind of plumbed this together and bled it quickly to kind of demonstrate. Basically, this is one of the first, well, it's a much older Shimano hydraulic group set, the first 105 generation to come with hydraulic brakes, but it should still serve to kind of demonstrate the issue. I'm going to put these pads that I've knocked the pad material off, I'll put them inside this caliper, and we should see these pistons still extend out far enough to clamp on nicely to this brake disc and stop this moving. Okay, so those brake pads are in there. Well, they're not really brake pads anymore. They're just kind of the backing plate, but I've put them in place and I've still got the kind of spring to push them apart. Yeah, that piece there, that's still in place. There's quite a big gap to make up, right? But let's put this disc brake in there and see if it'll compress. Okay, there, brake pads in there. You can see I pull the lever they're coming together, right? So I put the disc in and yeah, still wobbles around. So still moving, and I can pull the lever and it's now rock solid. So yeah, the Shimano Groupset. So this passes with flying colors, no problem at all. In fact, from my understanding, even without any pad material and the kind of disc removed, the pads should still touch actually. So if I keep pulling the brake lever, yeah, look at that. So they extend out far enough that the actual brake pads themselves, with no pad material at all, just the backing plate, they still touch. So yeah, absolutely no issues on the Shimano front. So that was absolutely fine. Let's check these group sets, right? So on this bike here, I've got the L-TWOO R9 11-speed group set. So mechanical shifting for the gears, but hydraulic brakes front and back. On this bike here, I've got Sensah Empire HRD. So again, we've got cable actuated mechanical shifting front and back, but hydraulic brakes. So we'll test that one. And finally, we'll test this. So L-TWOO ERX. So this is electronic shifting, but hydraulic brakes. And in fact, on this bike, I've swapped out the stock calipers with these ones. So these are 4-piston calipers here. I've done a video on these. Many of you may have seen that one, but this is going to be interesting because presumably with additional pistons, the actual volume of oil is you're going to need to move more oil to be able to fully compress those pads. So I'll be interested to see how this one fares, but let's check them out. So L-TWOO ER9, hopefully you can see there, no pad material. So I can zoom in on either of those 2 brake pads there. So let's test it. So I've chucked a wheel in this time and still moving, still going. But yeah, you can hear, there we go. So it's contacted the disc and we can still brake. So yeah, these are quite expensive rotors, so I don't want to go too ham on it. But yeah, L-TWOO R9 passes with flying colors. Just to show you kind of no funny business, L-TWOO R9 group set there, stock L-TWOO caliper, and yeah, the same pads that I used before with absolutely zero compound left on them. And I'll spin that. Pull the brake lever, yeah. So this L-TWOO group set passes, no issues. Next contender, Sensah Empire HRD, same wheel basically. So spinning, pump the brakes, oof, and yeah, again, rock solid. So yeah, Sensah passes the test as well, no issues here. And again, just to kind of show you and be thorough, exactly the same brake pads, and you should hopefully be able to see those black pistons quite heavily protruded on both sides. So yeah, Sensah Empire, no issues. And lastly, the L-TWOO ERX group set. And as I demonstrated, I've got these upgraded calipers on. So presumably they do require a bit more fluid inside here to push all those 4 pistons rather than kind of 2 on a normal caliper, to push all 4 in. So hopefully there's enough oil inside this reservoir to support this slightly upgraded caliper. Now I've got to use different brake pads. So these are the pads I've used on all the tests so far, whereas these require bigger brake pads. So I've knocked them down as much as I can. So if I pick them up here, I can show you there's little to no pad material left on these at all. So yeah, I'll stick these in and we'll test it. Right, here we go. This is the one I'm kind of most concerned about. So spins fine. Pump it a few times. So yeah, it's not quite as good, but after a few pumps, this one passes as well. Yeah, so a little bit touch and go. But yeah, after pumping a few times, this absolutely passes as well. So yeah, slightly less definitive, as it were, with this particular setup. But if I show you, those pistons have protruded out very far on both sides. So even with little to no pad material left, you can still brake. So if I show you, yeah, still does work. To reiterate, these are non-standard calipers. So with the stock calipers that come with the ERX group set, I'm sure this would pass with absolutely flying colors. I've no doubt about that. But with the presumably increased volume of oil required to push these pistons out, yes, slightly less definitive, as I mentioned. You'll still stop, but yeah, if you do run these particular calipers on this setup, I would just keep a bit of an eye on pad wear. It's pretty obvious when they're going, but yeah, it doesn't stop with quite the same force as it would do with stock calipers. But still, got to give it up to L-TWOO. They do support these monstrous calipers, which is good to see. Now, there is one group set in my collection that actually failed this test, and it's this one right here. So yeah, it's this Sensah Empire Pro HRD. Now this is very similar to the other Sensah Empire group set that I just showed you, but the difference is this is a pre-production prototype. So this was sent to me kind of before it was publicly available, and yeah, it fails in presumably the same way that the Magene one does. So this isn't reflective of Sensah Empire as a whole. As mentioned, that's a prototype version, but let me show you. Okay, so in here, I've kind of set it up and bled it with this tiny line, tiny bit of a brake line, but it's all bled properly. And you can see in here, I've got the same pads with no material on there. And if I squeeze this, it doesn't contact the disc. Now, to be honest with you, I don't even have to put the kind of disc in to show you it doesn't kind of compress enough. So I can be squeezing the lever like so, and hopefully you can see that's kind of as far as it goes. So still a huge gap, about twice the width of a kind of standard disc rotor. And yeah, that's as kind of far as it goes. So this particular prototype group set does actually fail, and that's presumably the same kind of failure mode as that Magene QED group set. So you can continue pulling. There is a little reservoir in here, but again, presumably it's not quite big enough, and yeah, the pads don't go any further than that. So definitely not enough on this particular example here to compress against a disc rotor when there is no pad material left. So I'll give it a few more squeezes. And yeah, that is literally as far as it goes. So this one does actually fail the test, which is quite interesting. Actually, I just realized I've got another group set I can test. So I've spotted this in the corner. This is a bike I've not used for a little while actually, but it's got the Wheeltop EDS TX group set on here, so I may as well put this one through its paces too. So give me a sec and I'll get it set up. Okay, right, let's give this a go. As you can see, spins free. Oh yeah, that's absolutely fine. Yeah, pretty much instantly. All good. So Wheeltop passes flying colors, no issues at all. Okay, so really interesting. Now, as mentioned several times, I don't have one of those QED group sets here to test. So yeah, do go and watch Peter's coverage of it, because yeah, you'll see the whole backstory and kind of examples of how it's allegedly failed as well. Now, just to speculate a little bit, as mentioned, the issue could stem from the fact that maybe the reservoir wasn't quite big enough, which personally I find unlikely. Surely that would have been caught in the design phase, right? Or potentially the reservoir is just difficult to bleed properly. If, for example, the reservoir is a slightly odd shape and it's difficult to evacuate all the bubbles inside and kind of fully fill the reservoir, then that could potentially lead to the same issue. So there may be an element of user error in there as well. But look, ultimately, I can't kind of confirm this 100% until I have one of these group sets here to test. This is all just speculation and secondhand accounts at this point, right? But the one thing I can ask is that I know we have a couple of viewers out there in China. So if any of you watching have one of those QED group sets and are willing to kind of test it in the same way, please send me some video or some evidence and stuff. I would love to see if this is just a kind of a widespread issue among all these group sets, or potentially just a really rare occurrence that crops up very occasionally. But look, either way, it does kind of undermine trust in a lot of these Chinese products, which is a bit of a shame. I mean, I've tried to show time and again, you do get some fantastic value for money out of these things. Now, I know I've had some issues with this Wheeltop EDS TX group set, but I am gonna give this a second chance, actually, and that'll be in an upcoming video, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, like this L-TWOO R9 group set here, I have a real soft spot for this thing because the price to performance you get out of this is pretty much unrivaled. And as I showed, it passed the brake test today with flying colors, as did virtually all of the group sets I tested, apart from that random prototype one down there. But then again, the issue that was on this prototype version wasn't present on the full retail version. So clearly they remedied it. But look, I actually have a contact at Magene, so I'm gonna drop them a message, give them a chance to respond and see if they've got a statement they wanna give. So yeah, stay tuned for that. But yeah, let me know what you reckon in the comments down below. I think it should be a pretty interesting discussion. Anyway, thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time. Ciao. It's the bonus clip time. Okay, right, so yeah, as mentioned earlier, I do have a contact at Magene. Now, I always, really strive to be fair and transparent with a lot of the reviews on this stuff. So with that in mind, I did want to give them a chance to make a statement, right? And this is what I've got. So since the incident happened, we've taken it very seriously and started a full investigation. After site inspections and several rounds of testing, we've concluded that this was an isolated case caused by a specific usage scenario, not a product design flaw or a batch quality issue. So yeah, that's what Magene are going with. Now, there are apparently some investigation materials available, but they're all in Chinese at the moment. So they're being translated into English at the minute. I think they'll be available the day after this is posted. So everything I'm allowed to share with you, I'll stick down in the description down below. So if you want to kind of delve into more of the specifics and details around this and see what Magene have got to say, then yeah, check those links down there. But what a crazy sort of story. Going to be really interesting to see how this all plays out. But yeah, thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.